In this lesson, we're going to be continuing talking about surface area. This is lesson 11.3, and we're going to be looking at the surface area of prisms. So Alex is designing wooden blocks in which to store his books. Each box measures 15 inches by 12 inches by 10 inches. To know how much wood to buy, he needs to find the surface area of each box. So we're going to find the surface area of each box. Alright, so this shows me the size of the box. It shows me the length, the width, and the height. And here we have our net drawn out for us, and it's got labeled the length, width, and height there. So we're going to go through. And we'll start with, they've already given us A. So for A, we'd say 12 times 10, which is 120. Now if you'll notice, ELF is exactly the same as A. We've got that 12 times 10, so this is also 120. So for ELF, I'm going to put in 12 times 10 is 120 inches squared. Alright, now let's look at B. So for B, I have 10 times the width. So notice the width was 15. So right here this would be 15. So 10 times 15 is 150. And if we'll look at D, D is the exact same. It's 10 times 15. So it's also 150. So here we'll put 15 times 10 is 150. Alright, now we're at C. So we have this part, which is 12, times this part, which is 15, which gives me 180. So we have, that was C. So that's 12 times 15 is 180. And notice that E is also 12 times 15, so it's 180. So my next step is to add those together. So I'm just going to take, let's just take the A, B, and C. So I'm going to take A, B, and C, so 120 plus 150 plus 180, and then I'm going to double that. So I'm going to multiply by 2 to get a surface area of 900 inches squared. So the surface area of each box is 900. I keep wanting to put centimeters, but it's inches squared. In the previous lessons, everything was centimeters, so now we're swapping over to inches. Alright, so in our next example, this time we have a triangular prism. Do y'all remember talking about triangular prisms? Alright, so we have the surface area equals the sum of the areas of 3 rectangular faces and 2 triangular bases. So if we look at the bases, so right here, here's our bases, the triangles, so they've got them labeled here also. So remember, for a triangle, when you're trying to find the area, you use area equals half base times height. So we're saying half of, and our dimensions are 12 and 5. Well, they've already got the 12 there, so we're going to multiply by 5. So what is half of 12? Half of 12 is 6, and 6 times 5 is 30. So right here, this would be 30, and this would also be 30, as far as the area goes. So notice that said A and E. Alright, so now we're going to look at B. Now notice on my rectangles, these are not all the same. They're different sizes. So we're going to have to find the area for each rectangle. We can't look at it and say, okay, well this one's going to be the same as that one. You're going to have to go through each one and find the area. So for B, it's a rectangle, or a parallelogram, however you want to look at that. So we're saying base times height, or length times width. So we're taking the 5 and multiplying by 10 to get 50. So I'm going to go ahead and write that 50 there. Then we move to C. So for C, I have 12 times, this is also 10, so 12 times 10, which gives me 120. So this one's 120. And then for D, I have 13 times 10, which is 130. So to get my surface area, I can either go through and add all 5 of these together, or I can take, say, 2 times 30 for my triangles, plus 50, plus 120, plus 130. So 120 and 30 makes 150. That makes 200. So that would make 360 altogether. So the surface area of this triangular prism is 360, and that's in inches squared. All right, let's look at the next one. So this is a cube, and there's a couple of different ways you can do this, so I'll go ahead and show you both. I basically have shown you this in the previous lesson, but we'll go back over it anyway. Alright, so notice they give us the cube and they also give us the net. Remember, with a cube, that means all sides are the same. So my length is the same, my width is the same, and my height's the same. So all of the faces are squares with a side length of 5 centimeters. So the areas of all the squares are the same. So if we find the area of one square, we would say 5 times 5 is 25 centimeters squared. So it takes 6 squares to make a cube. So there's 6 faces. I say 6 squares, but 6 faces, which the faces are squares in this case. So that would be like saying 25 plus 25 plus 25 plus 25 plus 25 plus 25. Which is the same thing as if I'd said 25 times 6. That's a 6, not a B. So when we add those, or when we multiply, we get 150 centimeters squared. Alright, so the other way is to use a formula. So remember when we were learning our area of a square? For the area of a square, we said A equals S squared, whereas S represented the sides. Well, when we're looking at surface area, there's a different formula. Notice instead of A equals, we have S equals for surface area. So basically all it is we'd say 6 times 5 squared. So 5 squared is 25, because remember 5 squared means 5 times 5. So that's where 25 comes from. And then 6 times 25 is 150. And that is centimeters squared again. More than likely, this is probably what you'll want to do. There may be a few of you that go ahead and start using the formula. If you like formulas, you might want to go ahead and do that. You'll be using lots of formulas as you get into high school also. Alright, so next, the Sharon Show. Alright, so here we have a cube again. So to get the area of each face, we'd say 2 times 2, which is 4. So that means that each face here has an area of 4 feet squared. And there are 6 faces. So we're going to take the number, the area of each face, which is 4, and multiply it by 6 to get 24 feet squared. So if you went back and added these, or said 4 times 6, you'd get 24. Now, another way that I do this when I'm not using a net is I know that this time I'm dealing with a triangular prism. I've got the 2 triangles and I've got the 3 rectangles. So what I'll do is I'd say like triangle 1, triangle 2, and then rectangle 1, rectangle 2, rectangle 3. Alright, so first off, I'm going to go ahead and get the area of my triangles, and remember they're going to be the same. So here we have 6, 8, so 6 times 8 would be 48, and when I divide that by 2, it's 24. So one triangle here is 24. Notice the other side would also be 24. So that means for my triangles, my area is going to be 48. So now the next thing is just to figure out the area of each rectangle. So I'm going to multiply each of these numbers that would be around the triangle by the number 16. So I'm going to say 16 times a number, 16 times a number, 16 times a number. Okay? So like 16 times 10, 16 times 8, and 16 times 6. So to show you why I'm doing that, let me go ahead and try to draw the net for you. And I'm not really good at drawing these. I always tend to get the numbers backward when I try to draw a net, which is another reason I do it the way I do it. Alright, so this is my 16s. That would be 6. This would be the 10. And this would be the 8. Okay? So the reason that I'm multiplying each of them by 16 is because if you'll notice, 16 is the one that goes across each one. So if I was trying to find the area of each one, I'd have to say, so for this one, I'd have to say 16 times 10, 16 times 6, 16 times 8. So that's why I'm doing it like this. So I take that height. If you look at the bases, we're just taking the height and measuring it times each side of the triangle. So here I get 160. I feel like doing that in my head. So 128 and 96. So my last step to get my surface area would be to go ahead and add all those. I've already added these two together. So now I'm going to take that 48 and I'm going to add the 160, the 128, and the 96. So 48 plus 160 plus 128 plus 96 equals, and I get 432 centimeters squared is my surface area. And number 3. So number 3 is going to be the one that y'all aren't going to like because it has fractions, but it's going to be okay. So this is a rectangular prism. So instead of drawing the net out, I'm going to show you how I do rectangular prisms without a net. So when we've got a prism, we have a front and a back. We have a top and a bottom. And we have a left and a right if we're looking at this thing straight. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start. We're going to say the front and back. We're going to use 3.5 times 8.5 to take care of the front and the back. So 3.5 times 8.5. Okay, and then for the top and bottom, notice the bottom here is 3.5 times 4. And then for the left and right, so I'm going to use the 4 times 8.5. So another thing you'll notice here is each time you're using a different dimension times another. So none of these are repeating. So the 8.5 you'll see twice, the 3.5 you'll see twice, and the 4 you'll see twice. Alright, so hopefully I've left myself enough room to work these out. So these are all rectangles, so I don't have to half them all, but I do need to make these improper so I can multiply. So 3.5 would be 7 halves, and 8.5 would be 17 halves. There's no cross canceling that I can do there. So 7 times 17